Professor William Dever is one of America's premier archaeologists who specializes in the history of Israel during biblical times. Early in his 50-year career, he witnessed and actually participated in a revolutionary change of attitudes towards the Bible in the field of archaeology.
I made my early reputation warring against traditional biblical archaeology, and people say, well, Dever's the man who killed biblical archaeology. No, I only observed its passing and wrote its obituary. The fact is, that sort of archaeology, trying to prove the Bible, wasn't working. I rebelled against my teachers when I was young because I thought there was much more to learn with different approaches to archaeology. And today no one does that kind of prove the Bible archaeology. Remember, the biblical writers exaggerate. Solomon was not quite that great, and David didn't do all those things. So I don't see Moses as the founder of Israelite religion, and most scholars don't today.
Professor Donald Redford has long been one of the world's most respected Egyptologists. He was given the award for Best Scholarly Book in Archaeology for his work, Egypt, Canaan, and Israel in Ancient Times. He too is very critical of the early Bible stories, including the Exodus.
I would subject the biblical 1 to 15 of Exodus to the same kind of historical probing that any historian will do. Who wrote this stuff? For whom did he write it? When did he write it? And very important, what did he know of the topic he was writing about? And boy, in my research, Exodus 1 to 15 comes off very negatively. Very.
What does negatively mean?
Well, it does not reflect almost anything to do with the original incident.
Retired university professor Doug Knight taught at Vanderbilt's Divinity School. He co-wrote The Meaning of the Bible, which is used in numerous colleges and seminaries.
Did Moses read the Torah? Frankly, I don't think so. I think it was a product of a lot of other people much later than his time.
Interestingly, these three leading voices in the world of archaeology, Egyptology, and biblical studies have something in common. All were raised in conservative Bible-believing homes, just as I was. Over time, these scholars became agnostic, at least in part because of the challenges they saw against the Bible, such as the lack of supporting evidence. Was that sort of the beginning of going from maybe a fundamentalist believer to an agnostic?
Yes, very much so. I felt that this is very personal stuff, that something had been put over on me, and there was fraudulence involved, and I still feel that way.
By exploring this topic, would I follow their same path? Or would I find answers to my questions and keep my faith? My parents met at a Bible college in Minneapolis. My mother got her degree in music, and my father, a decorated Korean war vet, was studying to be a pastor. They married, and I was their first child. On weekends, we would travel to a country church in Wisconsin to help with services. My father, with his military background, ended up becoming a police officer, and my family grew to include 2 sisters and a brother. Every week, we attended Sunday school at church and would hear a different story from the Bible. That would have been the first time I learned about Moses and the Exodus, and I would come to believe that these stories were true. As I grew older, I was taught that Moses was the author of the first books of the Bible, also known as the Torah or the Pentateuch. That is why what Professor Doug Knight said about the Bible not being written by Moses, but by multiple authors hundreds of years later, was troubling to me. I asked Professor Dever about this. Let's talk about how common the view is that Moses wrote the Torah among scholars today.
I don't think any scholars would hold that view today. Even evangelical scholars make use of the documentary hypothesis, for instance. Lay people, of course, will believe that, and Orthodox Jews will believe that, Orthodox rabbis. But I don't think any mainstream scholars would any longer hold that view.